Howdy, folks. I'm Terrence, the Truth Tiger.
I'm Amber.
And here's some Reddit. That's that thing. I didn't really know what to do for a transition there. So tonight, as you can see, Amber's joining me yet again. Tonight we're gonna have a tea time, and your choices for my tea are rhubarb cream soda, licorice spice, or mint. So let me know what you folks are going to choose there. Our first letter is titled, Am I a Jerk for Enforcing My House Rules on My Wife's Brother? I'm a 30-year-old male, and my brother-in-law, a 20-year-old male, Sean, moved in with me and his sister after my father-in-law passed away a few months ago. Literally a few months ago. He is the private type and likes to keep to himself. He goes out and never says where he's going or how long he'll be out. He eats at random times through the day, wears earplugs while me and the kids are sitting with him. See, all these things are uncool behaviors and a bad influence on my children.
Yeah, real bad influence there, eating outside of scheduled times.
I've already talked to Sean about certain house rules and how he was violating them, and maybe because he didn't know, but now nothing has changed. Well, last night he came home around 10 p.m. I wasn't thrilled with that because he knew the rules, but he said that he was an adult and I shouldn't be policing him. But it's not about that. It's about the fact that he repeatedly disrespects the homeowners and rules. So I told him this: if he won't respect the rules, which are 1, being home at 8, not eating at random times, and not using his electronics, just like my kids aren't allowed to when the family is gathered to spend time together. He ranted about how he wasn't a child. My child called me unreasonable to treat him this way just because he lives under my roof. I told him it's not hard to show respect, but my wife went off asking what was wrong with me to be giving Sean, who is still grieving, ultimatums and treating him like a child. I explained to her that I'm just making sure the kids won't be influenced by her brother's reckless behavior, and she laughed, asking if she thinks Sean being on his phone was reckless. But this is beside the point. She called me a control freak and told me to get off her brother's back and leave him alone. I repeated that she's just saying this because he's her brother, but she said I overstepped and I should back off and stop trying to control her adult brother. I asked her if she was happy with him coming home late, and she said she was sick of arguing and then went upstairs. Am I the jerk here?
Yes, 100%.
I can understand certainly wanting the kids to have positive influences in their lives, but there are certain rules in here that do seem a little excessive, and I certainly don't think he should be enforcing rules on an adult man, for instance, right?
Well, and the thing is, it is common in households for adults and children to have different rules. And so, yeah, maybe the kids will clamor, well, why can't we stay out until 10 o'clock because Uncle does? And that's when you say, well, Uncle is 20. When you get to be 20, you can stay out till 10 p.m. too. Like, none of this stuff he's doing is harming OP or his kids in any way. Like, for the eating thing, he probably had his own like meal schedule
Mm-hmm.
back in his own house with his father. And so it's ridiculous to expect him to only eat at your designated meal times.
Yeah,
Um,
well, I can certainly understand the frustration. Like if you're planning a meals, it can be difficult to plan a meal around someone who's eating at irregular times, and I do understand that. Like, so I'm not saying that OP is still reasonable here because, like, this guy, he's 20 years old and he's grieving his father who was just lost, right? He may not even feel like he has an appetite sometimes, right? And I certainly think that, like, the staying out till 10 o'clock, that's not even that late.
no, it's not like expecting a grown adult to be home at 8 p.m. and like wanting to keep tabs on him. Like OP definitely is pleasing him like a child.
Yeah, and I think the earbuds, I think that that's a little bit rude to sit around with like your earbuds in if you're trying to spend time with people. But this is just, things that's just kind of a minor thing, and it's not really like the crux of the issue here
Right.
either, you
Well, and
know?
if I had to guess there, I also would guess that it's OP is trying to mandate family time when the
Yeah.
brother doesn't even want to be part of it.
Yeah, I mean, if the brother is just coming down to hang out with them and putting his earplugs in so that he can't hear them, that's a little bit different. But he also might just find it comforting to be in the presence of people too. And so this is a really difficult situation. and I don't have like the way this is all phrased. It makes it a little muddy for me to judge completely. But I do think that whether or not the 20-year-old male Sean is doing anything in the wrong, I certainly think OP is for sure the jerk in this situation,
Yeah, I
though.
think Opie is 100% the jerk. I don't think Sean is doing anything on the wrong. And I think the biggest issue here is Opie acting like he can make unilateral decisions for
Yes,
the
yeah,
household
yeah,
without his wife's input.
yeah. Where was the wife in discussing all this
Like,
stuff?
it sounds like he set up these house rules and he expects everyone to abide by them.
Yeah.
And I feel really bad for his wife in this whole thing because it sounds like he thinks she shouldn't have a say. Oh, well, you're just caving because this is your brother. Like,
Yeah.
well, no, dude.
Like
Like, this,
she's being reasonable here,
yeah.
you know?
She doesn't want her brother to be treated like a literal child.
Yeah. So for sure, I'm not trying to justify OP here, but I do think that, households are a a dynamic thing, and it does require people to cooperate and whatnot. And I think like there can be compromises as well, but I don't think he should be like mandating rules. Like, and if he has worries that the kids are going to pick up on bad habits, then he needs to talk to Sean in private about that. Be like, oh, hey, it might be a little bit of a bad habit to have your earplugs in. We, discourage the kids to do that when they're, spending time with the rest of the family. Can you just do that when you're in your room, right? And whether or not that needs to be a conversation they have, and they need to resolve how those dynamics work here.
I think the key thing there is conversation,
Yeah,
not laying
conversation,
down
literal
rules.
conversation. Yeah,
And I think also again he is grieving.
yeah,
Like, he may be behaving differently. I mean, it's very normal for people to go into kind of like a shutdown mode when they are in the thick
yeah,
of grief, where they don't really want to spend a lot of time like chit chatting about what's happening. And so I think OP trying to mandate him to be more social with the family, and
yeah.
that's
In a
not.
time when he's not really ready for that either. So yeah, I agree on that. I agree on that.
All right, before we get to our next thing, let's do our tea
Oh,
time.
you want to do tea time now?
Yes.
All right. So if you folks have your guesses in, I'm drinking strawberry rhubarb cream soda,
Rhubarb
rather
cream soda, yeah.
rhubarb cream soda.
I guessed it right today.
Yeah, I gave her three options. The three options I gave you of sorts, and she guessed it.
Yes, I don't think you even had me guess yesterday, but I did guess today and I guessed it right.
So Amber gets 5 Brian
Yes, I
points.
get 5 Brian points. All right, our next story is: Am I the jerk for telling my friend that she is a jerk? I'm a 32-year-old female, and my childhood best friend is also a 32-year-old female. She just became a lawyer and then dumped her boyfriend. My best friend and I grew up in poverty. We had not much opportunities for an education. For young women in our area, our only options were retail, drug dealing, prostitution, or hoping a rich guy would notice us. For guys, it was retail, drug dealing, or finding one of the few factory jobs remaining. I get lucky, managed to date a med student, and he helped open doors for me, and I have become a teacher in a school in a lower socioeconomic area to provide these opportunities. My husband is now a doctor. My friend tried that option but was not as lucky. She was working minimum wage retail at age 25. While doing so, she got friendly with a factory worker, a 30-year-old male, who came by regularly and they started dating. He knew he was not the academic type, school was not for him, but he also saw potential in my friend and encouraged her to go to school. She had dreams of becoming a criminal prosecutor and he encouraged her to not give up. He took out whatever loan he could find so that she could get an education. He supported her through and through, did the housework, worked extra shifts, everything so she could get an education. My friend persevered, graduated, and became a lawyer. Shortly after, she broke up with her boyfriend just as he planned on proposing to her. She said that as a professional, she had no interest in being married to a working class man and that she deserves a real man. I was horrified and I told her that she is betraying a man who has supported her through all this and made her what she is. She got mad and said it's not the woman's job to pay the bills and I'm a hypocrite because my husband makes a lot more than me. She further said that the idea of marriage as a life partnership is a patriarchal construct, that she has the right to date whoever she wants, and that as a feminist I should be supporting her. I told her she is not only a major jerk, she is giving feminists a bad name because feminism means women financially supporting their male partners as much as in the reverse.
So, okay, there's so much packed in here, right? She's like, it's not the woman's job to pay the bills, while also simultaneously crying out feminism.
Yes, yes. So, okay, you are absolutely not the jerk, and your friend needed to be told because what she is doing is not cool at all.
No,
This
it's not.
guy has, supported her financially, emotionally,
Yeah.
and, done housework and stuff just so she could get through school. And as soon as she's there, she decides she's too good for him.
Yeah, I think this is so sad for this poor man. Like, he really gone out of his way, it sounds like, to do everything for her. And she's just basically walked all over him and treated him just like just used him,
Yeah.
right? And that's just completely awful. It really is.
Yeah, and her whole idea of feminism is completely skewed. Like, feminism is not about, like, women walking all over men. It's about creating, an equal society where everyone has, equal opportunities to succeed and whatnot.
Yeah.
And so I think OP is right to call out her friend on that because, like, that's just such a twisted, selfish, like, she just sounds like a very selfish person.
She
And she's
does.
just trying to find whatever excuse she can
To
to
justify
justify
her
her
bad
bad
behavior.
behavior.
Exactly. I wanted to read a couple of these, or have you read them.
Okay. Not the jerk. She used him. This has nothing to do with feminism. She took his love, his graciousness, and led him to believe they have a future together while bleeding him dry. She is a vampire. She does not have the requisite morality to be considered for your friendship because you're a good person. She is not. Then someone replies, the good news is she does have the requisite morality to be a lawyer. In other words, none.
Yeah, when we read these, I was like, oh, we have to read those comments. We really do. Yeah, I mean, that summarizes it about as well as I can. She literally is a vampire here. Like, this is not about equality. This is not about, she literally used an individual and then discarded him when it was convenient.
Exactly, and someone who, gave her so much, love and support and compassion over the years and helped her reach her full potential. And as soon as she's there, she's just gonna discard him. Like,
Yeah.
that's just a very lousy thing to do.
Yeah. Our next letter is titled, Am I a Jerk for Spying Without Advising Anyone in Advance? I know we just read a spying one just yesterday, folks, but hang on to your seats because this one probably tops that one in some ways. New account, obvious reasons. Married with 3 adult kids, all employed and moved out. 6 months ago, 24-year-old single daughter asked to move back home for a year to help save for an apartment. We agreed and charged her only small amount of rent that we planned on giving back to her if she met her savings goal. This past summer, my wife and I went on vacation and daughter, without our knowledge, held a party at the house. Upon return, we noted that items in the house were damaged or missing. Daughter admitted to what had happened and committed to pay for the damaged/stolen items. I was upset and I felt that the privacy and sanctity of my castle was violated. It made me sick to my stomach that strangers that I didn't know were in my house and pilfered through my stuff. I got over it and we moved on. However, I made it clear to my daughter that no visitors were allowed in our house in the future unless we were present and or approved in advance. Fast forward to the holidays after Christmas, wife and I went on a 3-day getaway. Prior to leaving, I installed wireless nanny cam devices in the living room that is hooked up to the internet. I did it on my own without advising my wife and daughter. Kind of a trust but verify situation. After a day, I logged into the camera about 9 p.m. and although there wasn't a party going on, my daughter had a guy in the house and was engaging in an activity that I can't unsee. I quickly turned off the computer and told my wife, and then stuff hit the fan. She accused me of violating my daughter's trust and dignity. She immediately called my daughter and advised that I was spying on her, and our mini getaway developed into a series of mean-spirited comments and silent treatment. Upon our return home, daughter was in the process of moving out, and without getting into specifics, I'm apparently the equivalent of pond scum. In my defense, what I saw was for all of 5 seconds, and I was not expecting on my part. Daughter wasn't in a relationship or even dating. Further, she violated my explicit rule of not having guests over, and there was only a single camera that covered the living room, not an area that is normally considered has an expectation of privacy. Although it's embarrassing all around, I don't think I'm the jerk. I believe I was within my rights to protect and surveil my house in the manner that I did. Wife's position is that I had no right to put a camera in the living room without her knowledge, and daughter's position is that if she knew about the camera, she wouldn't have invited anyone over. But nevertheless, believes that she did nothing wrong, as she was a rent-paying adult and was entitled to have a single person over. And what I did was a gross invasion of her privacy. For the record, I didn't pass judgment. Daughter is a mature adult and could engage in whatever legal activity she chooses, just not in my house involving another person. So here I am just over a week later looking for the opinions of strangers on the internet. So am I the jerk? And we're not going to read the edits because there's not a whole lot in there.
Yeah, so OP, I think, is a big jerk for a multitude of reasons. First of all, this is his wife's house. This is a theme we're seeing. This is his wife's house, too. And
Yeah.
here he is making a decision without her knowledge or consent.
Mm-hmm.
These cameras would be monitoring her, too. So that is really icky. Secondly, his daughter is a paying tenant.
Yeah.
It may not be a lot of money, but she's a paying tenant,
Mm-hmm.
and tenants have rights. If you move into an apartment and you're paying rent and your landlord, like, installs spy cameras in the apartment without your knowledge, that
You're going to take them to court.
Exactly.
And that's what's important here, is that she is literally, as Amber said, a paying tenant. And as a right, she should be able to have call this house her home as well, right? And I can certainly understand the father getting upset about, a large group of people being over at the house, damaging things, right? And that, she should be paying for the repairs for that.
Absolutely. Having the party was, excessive. Again, as a tenant, I don't know what the legal rights are, but usually you can have people over and stuff like that. But certainly anything that's damaged, she should be required to replace. And I think it's fine to not want big scale parties, but to have now you can't have anyone over. I don't want any strangers in my house. You can't have tenants if you don't want strangers in your house.
Yeah, and I know that he thinks he's doing his daughter a favor, but he's not doing his daughter a favor by installing nanny cams and trying to check up on her. And
right.
The thing is that he claims that there wasn't a expectation of privacy in the living room, but that's not the case when no one else is at the house. You expect when you're in an empty house that every room you have the expectation of privacy in. You aren't expecting basically
someone to be surveilling you.
Yeah, someone to be surveilling you. What happens if she just enjoys walking around in the buff, right? What happens if that had been the case? You folks were gone. She decided that this was her opportunity just to walk around in the buff. Then you would have had another different issue. Maybe this wasn't the case for this particular issue, but it could have been.
Right, and so OP has violated his daughter's privacy and her rights as a tenant. He's violated his wife's trust by installing cameras in their shared home without her consent. And so, yeah, I can understand being miffed that your daughter had a party without your consent and not wanting that to happen in the future. But the way you approach is really wrong.
Yeah, and by all means, OP had every right to install cameras, but everyone needed to be aware of
Right,
them.
you have to be above board if you're doing that. His wife needs to know, his daughter needs to know.
Yeah.
And this situation would not have arisen if they had all known.
Yeah, this is, she wasn't going to invite people over the house if you had cameras out because she didn't want you recording her and stuff like that. And if she did, she would have done stuff in her bedroom probably instead. And so I think OP brought a lot of this onto themselves.
Yeah, exactly. And he's like, well, she wasn't even dating anyone that you know of because she can't trust you.
Yeah, clearly she can't trust you.
So you can't just assume that she's not dating anyone because you haven't met them. You don't necessarily seem like the type of person she wants to introduce you to.
All right, folks, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks to Amber for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for watching. If you like this video, consider giving us a like. And if you dislike this video, consider giving us a dislike. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you all tomorrow.
Bye!